Hey, this is Fred from Cowboy Mouth, and you're listening to the Midwest Mixtape Podcast live from the Barn Studio.
I've no reason for the things I fear, the things that plague me when I see and hear. Dime's a nickel and a nickel's none. I throw myself into the Sunday sun. A summer Sunday when you've been insane. You said you're going, but I said I can't. I'm throwing oranges in an apple cart. The ties that bind are tearing me apart. Jenny says, turn off the radio. Jenny says, turn off the light. Jenny says, turn off the video. You beat yourself up to bring yourself down. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Let it go, let it go, let it go.
Hi, and welcome to the Midwest Mixtape Podcast live from the Barn Studio in Southeast Missouri. You got the Mox here, and I'm joined with a special guest online right now. We have Fred from Cowboy Mouth. Fred, how are you, man?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Doing really well. Excited to have you back in town. You're coming to St. Louis at the Old Rock House. And the date of that, I should have wrote down, but it is in April.
You should have written this down, man. You should have written this down.
I have everything else. Doors are 7, shows at 8, $30. Excited to have you back in town.
Good. It'll be great. It'll be a lot of fun. The Rock House is always a blast.
Yeah, and it seems like St. Louis is sort of a market that treats you pretty well. I think you have a pretty solid fan base here in St. Louis. Is that the case?
I think we do all right. Hey, we had a hit song a few years back that was bigger in St. Louis than anywhere else. It was a song called "What You Gonna Do," and the first line is "St. Louis Hot Summer." So people have always loved that song around Missouri.
And then, of course, Jenny says, and, I think, 105.7 The Point here in St. Louis is a staple rock alternative station of ours, been around for years. Just played the heck out of it, still play the heck out of it. And, do you credit some of that to some of the response that you see in your crowds?
You think? They've been very good to us. In fact, a few years back before lockdown, we played, I think it was their last festival before lockdown. It was great. And it was kind of surprising because we had like an insanely huge crowd, and I don't think they were expecting it. But, they expected us to do well, but they didn't expect us to do as well as we did. And it was, they kind of woke them up a little bit. Hey, guys, still here, still kicking ass. Ain't going anywhere.
Obviously from the New Orleans, Louisiana area, we just coming out of Mardi Gras. Is everybody okay? Is everybody fully recovered? Are we good?
If you could just keep it down a little bit, that would really help me out.
Right.
Mardi Gras was great. I actually rode in a parade with my wife and some friends. Mark Bryan from Hootie rode with us, and it was just great. It was just great. And then we played a big show at the House of Blues the night before actual Mardi Gras day, packed. It was great. It was just Mardi Gras could not have gone better.
And you guys have been at this thing for what, over 30 years now, right?
Yeah, like 34 years now.
How has everything changed from the early days? Well,
it's always changing. It is always changing. I mean, when we first started, it was like 4 of us in a van. And then, we got to the point where, we started, we had some independent records, and then we signed to a major. And that was, that was what it was. Had some success, had some hit singles. In the 90s and 2000s, we were signed to 2 major labels. And then when it became kind of pointless for a band like us to be on a major label, we started just kind of doing our own thing. And then, it's always adapting. We got to the point where we don't really do albums anymore. We just put out singles every 3 to 6 months to keep the fan base going. And if something pops, it's great. And if not, not going to worry about it. You're always adapting. But the thing about it is that I personally think the future is live music. I don't think the album as a format really exists that much anymore, at least not naturally. I mean, you're always going to have a Taylor Swift, or if the Beatles do a remix, or or something like that. People are going to buy it. But for an artist like us that doesn't have the support of a monolithic global corporation behind them, we're just a bunch of creative types doing our own thing our own way. I think the more material you get, and like the single format, and just offer them options, with merchandise and that type of thing. But, we've always put it on a kick-ass show. We always will put it on a kick-ass show, and that's always been our bread and butter.
And I think your bio even said that you guys average like 250 shows a year. Is that right?
It depends on the year. Some years are like that. Some years are slower. So, and I mean, but I mean, we have a pretty hefty work schedule, and that's the way we like it. We like to work.
And you hear sometimes bands getting, road worn or just burn out on the road. How do you guys keep it interesting? How does it not become sort of the movie version of the rock and roll lifestyle where it's, hello Cleveland and you're in St. Louis? How does it become? How do you keep it interesting?
When we used to do those long grinding tours, when it'd be like a few months out, you'd be literally out for 3 or 4 months at a time. That got really old. Plus, people always look at tour buses as like some sort of status or glamour. And it is nice to have one. I will say that. But I was trapped in that thing for 15 years, Yep. It's like, I'm really enjoying what we do is we take a region and we'll book a bunch of dates in a region. And then we'll just go up and just drive around, And I like being involved with people in the audience. I like seeing people on a day-to-day basis. I didn't really like the whole thing where you get cut off, from the rest of the world because of how other people perceive you. I'm just me. I like people. I'm lucky enough to play in what I think is one hell of a band, and we do something unique and interesting to audiences. And when people leave a Cowboy Mouth show, 9 times out of 10, they feel 1,000 times better than when they came in,
And I see that you guys are out there playing some really interesting venues and shows. I've seen you on, in a pool, I think, or on a beach. And does that kind of keep it exciting for you playing these new and interesting and fun places? Because at this point, if you're a Cowboy Mouth fan, I'm sure you have a section of your audience that's younger, but I would say most of them are probably my age in their 40s or so. So,
it's mixed. It's mixed. It's like, my wife was pointing out when we played Mardi Gras the other day at House of Blues in New Orleans, the number of young kids like they're like 19, 20s, things like that. And, and they knew the words sometimes better than I did, because I'll blank out. But I mean, it's not really, it's the music, it's the presentation. But for Cowboy Mouth is like is one of the best descriptions I ever heard was just a few years back, this giant, tall, good old boy from like Alabama or Georgia. Couldn't have been nicer. Nice guy. He comes up and says, "Man, I love you guys. Y'all are like a gospel tent revival without the religion." I was like, I like that. That's good. So, and that's kind of what it is. It's definitely a display of energy, enthusiasm, emotion, and it's just supposed to be a big, giant, swirling joygasm. And that's what a Cowboy Mouth show is.
And do you think the mixture of all the genres that you guys kind of throw into your sound, do you think that also keeps it interesting? Because, obviously rock and blues, and there's some punk in there, and now even some country with like a Love Song is actually getting some country airplay. Is that right?
Yeah, Like a Love Song is getting some country airplay. It keeps it interesting for us, I mean, some of my old favorite bands are bands like, obviously, the Beatles, but also bands like The Replacement, who you never knew what they were going to put out, but you knew it was going to be good. And they did all kinds of stuff. They did rock, they did punk, they did some country, they did rockabilly. One of their biggest hits was a rockabilly song, and it's just, I like that idea of not being lumped into one category. This is X band and they do this. They do A, B, and C. I like being able to do whatever the hell we want to do. We're as much of, we're as much of fans as we are of Green Day and the Sex Pistols. Were also, that much a fan of like Hank Williams and Patsy Cline, so, just, I don't like being limited. So pretty much whatever comes into my pointed little head, I'm willing to do.
I have to ask you about your relationship with Guy Fieri. I see him on a lot of your videos coming up, doing songs with you. How did that relationship happen? How did that connection happen?
Oh, he's an old buddy, man. I knew him before, he became a TV star. We were playing the show. We were doing a countrywide tour. It was a co-headline with us and another band from New Orleans called Better Than Ezra. And all the shows were sold out and packed except this one show in Modesto, California, of all places. I don't know what happened, but, all the other shows were packed, hundreds, sometimes, thousands of people. And we played in Modesto, and there was only like 40 or 50 tickets sold for this 900-seat room. And I remember, that could be a pretty daunting thing for a band, but I kind of enjoy that situation. Not that I want to play it all the time, but I enjoy it simply because it's a challenge. How can I do this? Live performing is always a challenge, right? So So Guy and a couple of friends of his, this was long before he was anybody, long before Food Network and all that stuff. But he's always been, he's always dressed like he dresses and does his hair like he does it. And I remember we were playing and he's in the back of the venue sitting at a table with these other guys, right? And just giving me the stink eye, like, who the hell is this, And so during the show, I figured, why not mess with him, So I jumped off the drums, jumped off the stage. The band was still playing. I jumped off and walked over and jumped on his table right in front of him. And I'm like crotch level to his face.
Funny.
And I'm like, listen, I don't know who you are. I don't care who you are. But if you guys don't start having some fun, I'm going to be talking a lot of crap about all of you. So you might as well get up and enjoy yourself. At that moment, he just starts laughing his ass off. And, he came up and the show ended up being a blast. And we were friends. We've been friends ever since. That was over 20 years ago. God damn, that was like 25 years ago. So
that's super cool.
Yeah. So, and then it was funny because, we became friends, and he, it was funny because I was one of the folks he called and he said, hey man, I'm thinking of trying out for this Food Network thing. What do you think? And I was like, dude, you should do it. It'd be great. If nothing else, it'll give you, it'll, give some good publicity for your restaurants because he owned a couple of restaurants in the Bay Area at the time, just a local restaurateur, and he, and then he's like, all right, people tell me I need to do it. It's like, yeah, you need to do this. So, and it was, I had forgotten about this, but he told me this story recently. He said, he announced, he was introducing us at a show and he told this story and I totally forgot about it. When things were starting to go really like big for him real fast. And he asked me, because, I dealt with, craziness and stuff. He asked me, how to handle it. And I said, dude, just, be honest in all your business dealings. Be honest in all your business dealings. Don't ever try to get one over on somebody else and don't let somebody get one over on you. The best way to have a business dealing is that both sides win. Number one. And number two, always treat your fans with dignity and respect. Because they're human beings and, they're coming to you for some sort of, they're coming to you. They're making your dreams come true. I mean, they're making your dreams come true. And all they ask is for a little acknowledgement. Always be gracious and kind to your fans. So, and I'd forgotten that I told them all that stuff. So we've just been friends for a while. We have a text thread going, me, him, a guy named Panini Pete in South Alabama, and a guy named Stretch who owns Grinders, which is a great pizza joint in Kansas City. And we just have a text thread. We keep in touch. And I like to send out, really messed up memes about once a week.
That get no response, right? You're that guy?
No. They try to challenge me and they always lose.
Funny.
Bow to the master, Fietti. Great dudes. I'm very happy to count all those guys up as my friends,
That's great. And I'd say that's pretty profound and good advice for anybody listening out there.
You just learn in life. You just learn in life that, we're all shown these commercials and television shows pretty much from birth of, you would need to make all the money. You need to, to hell with the other guy. And I've been around long enough to understand that how you treat the other guy is how the other guy is more than likely to treat you. And so if you're fair with everybody and you try to give the benefit of the doubt to, most people, not all people, but most people, it comes back to you in really, really wonderful ways that you'd never expect.
Having the longevity of your career like you've had, do you ever have younger artists reach out for advice or ask you for advice?
Sure. Yeah, I get that all the time. I get it all the time.
And is some of the things that you're saying here, is that some of the things that you tell them as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, it's, the energy you put out in the world is the energy you get back. Simple. It's really simple. It's not that difficult. And, if you want to go out and be an a-hole, make tons of money and yada, yada, become super uber rich and all that type of stuff, there's nothing wrong with it. But, in the long run, all that bad energy is going to come back to you. Everything in life is energy, and what you put out there is what you get back. It's all just a giant circle of life. But, it's I've just learned that, what you give of yourself is what you're giving back. And that's pretty simple, pretty much. Which is why I always try to make the Cowboy Mouth show an experience. The live thing is still challenging. I mean, I could have done like producing and all that type of stuff. And I enjoy it, but, I didn't want to be stuck in the same situation over and over again. The live Cowboy My Show is still always a challenge to me after all these years. Every night I still get excited. I still try to find new ways to convey things, new ways to do things, new places to bring the audience, new places for the audience to bring us. It's still really fun, and I'm actually enjoying it a lot more now than I ever have, because I'm not dealing with a lot of the corporate pressure and BS. It's like, it's our thing. We do it our way. And, we've done really well. I can't complain,
I think the audience can definitely tell that, even when you play Jenny Says, everybody knows that it's Jenny Says, but you put your own little twist and turn on it, maybe to keep it interesting, maybe to keep it interesting for the crowd. But tell us about...
It's not a matter of keeping it interesting. I guess, let me try to put that a better way. Continue to make it a challenge, I mean, like, we're doing some different things with Jenny Says now that we just started doing, just to make it challenging, to make it something that creatively enjoyable for us, But I mean, I like to think that the songs are good. I mean, it's we had this producer guy named John Hampton out of Memphis, a great producer. He produced the Gin Blossoms' big albums, and he worked with the Replacements on some stuff. Really talented guy. He told me once, he's like, man, you guys, your songs are like nursery rhymes for adults. And I'm like, that's it. So, I mean, the songs aren't Cowboy Mouth's not a hard band to like. We try to make a lot of things very accessible. I'm not, on one level, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but on the other hand, we're not trying to, we're not sitting around with our thumbs up our butts hoping to be invited to the cool kids party. Like, the party begins and ends right here, baby. If you want to be a part of it, great. And if you don't, good luck.
Do you think that's self-awareness?
It just comes with time. You do anything like this for as long as we've done it. I mean, if you don't learn and you don't learn to adapt, then you falter and you fall by the wayside. And here we are. We were on MCA Records, and then Atlantic, an Atlantic subsidiary, and both those pretty powerful major labels, and they're both gone. We're still here. So there you go.
I'm a little bit biased here. I want to know your opinion. I think the 90s you mentioned better than Ezra, the Replacements, Hootie, Gin Blossoms, even the grunge stuff. Yeah, all that. Do you think the 90s was one of the best decades or time periods for music?
I do. And, I'm biased too, but here's the deal. The two things that get all the attention was the beginning of the 90s and the end of the 90s. Beginning where you had grunge and sludge, which was great. Nirvana, Soundgarden, even Pearl Jam, it's great rock bands, but it's that same attitude, that same kind of nihilism, that type of thing. And then later in the decade where you had, on one extreme, you had Britney Spears, NSYNC, all that stuff. And on the other spectrum, you had, nu metal, both very validated, genres of music and, different audiences and things like that. But there was this little time period right in the middle of the 90s that a lot of people don't talk about. And it was bands like us. It was bands like Hootie, bands like Better Than Ezra, Gin Blossoms, Edwin McCain, Sister Hazel, all bands that were really interested in songcraft. And, it wasn't really as much about the attitude as much as it was the songs and the performance of the songs and the arrangements, because there was a lot of great songs written back then, like Ezra, they had Good and Desperately Wanting and, King of New Orleans, Sister Hazel, Champagne High, All For You, and, Gin Blossoms, they have so many great songs. I mean, there was this little middle time period in the middle 90s, I guess, from about 93 to about 97, where, just a rock and roll band that wasn't grungy or wasn't like heavy duty, could actually get attention from the media matrix and, be validated in, creating quality stuff,
Do you find it interesting that a lot of the bands that we're talking about they're still around and they're still doing it, they're still playing?
Well, I think the thing about it is like, sure, it's a business. You have to run it like a business. But I think a lot of those bands, they just enjoy it still, And, it's weird because, I like to think that we've always been a pretty potent live force, because that's what I set out to do from day one, to have a really, intense live experience because, number one, that's who I am as a performer. But number two, it's the only thing nobody could steal from me. They can steal songs, they can steal recordings, they can steal money, but they can't steal me, And but I mean, you have some of those bands, Hootie was great during their heyday, but they're better now. Ezra was really great in their heyday, but they're better bands now. It's like they're really, it's bands that are interested in songs and performance and things like that. They just get better over time,
When I think about that time period, one of the bands, well, actually one of my favorite bands, they actually, I think in some circles, they're called like a one-hit wonder band, but they were so much more than that, and that's Blind Melon.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird that you mentioned that I lived right around the corner from that club where Noon was when he died. Yeah, and I was riding my bike around there. We had the day off. I had a few days off, and I was riding my bike around Tina's, which was the club where they were supposed to play that night. And I saw the tour bus. Then I saw a bunch of, activity around it. It's like, something's up. And then I heard, heard that he had died and stuff. So, but they're, just great song bands, And I mean, there's so many, like Sister Hazel, like I mentioned them before. They're actually a better band now than they were back then. And they were great back then, So that's always been interesting to see. That's been fun to see.
This is a Midwest Mixtape podcast and KLMZ, The Zone, and we are excited to have Cowboy Mouth. We actually have the date now, Fred. That is March 30th at the Old Rock House, Cowboy Mouth. It's all ages. Doors are at 7, shows at 8, $30, tickets in advance. Fred, we really appreciate your time today and can't wait to have you back in town.
My pleasure, man. I'm looking very forward to coming down to St. Louis, Missouri, because St. Louis is always a boatload of laughs for us. We always have a great time there.
Thanks, Fred. Have a good day.
Hey, you too, man. Thank you for everything, and come say hello at the Rock House.
I've no reason for the things I fear, the things that plague me when I see and hear. Time's a nickel and a nickel's none. I throw myself into the Sunday sun. A summer Sunday when you've been insane. You said you're going, but I said I can't.